Sometimes people who are really hurting find each other in the toughest spots. Sometimes a woman who's lost everything meets a man who only cares about his land. In Coyote Gulch, Cassian Holt ran his ranch like a boss. This big cowboy thought a man's value was in the sons he raised. When 21-year-old Mariah June showed up at his door, starving and alone after a fire took everything she had, Cassian saw his shot. He wanted 3 strong boys to keep his name going, and he wanted to start right away. But Mariah wasn't the scared girl he thought she'd be. She had a fiery heart and a tough spirit. What happens when someone who won't budge meets someone who won't back down? What happens when a guy used to getting his way meets a girl who won't let him win? Before we dive back in, tell us where you're listening from. And if you like this story, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow I've got something super cool planned for you. The dust in Coyote Gulch covered everything like a blanket of old dreams. In this part of Wyoming, where wind-shaped cliffs and the sun burned away hope, only the strong survived. The town was just a bunch of old buildings clinging together against. The big empty. General store, a saloon, a church that saw more burials than marriages, and a few houses where folks held on to the idea that they could make a life in this tough place. But 5 miles west, where the grass stretched out like a frozen green sea toward far-off mountains, was the Holt Ranch. It was a kingdom built from wild land by one man's grit and toughness. Cassian Holt had made it with rough hands and a heart scarred by betrayal. At 35, he was 6'4" in his boots, with shoulders wide enough to carry his big dreams and hands big enough to grip a horse's neck. His face showed the marks of a guy who'd faced storms, both from nature and people, with eyes like a cold winter sky, sharp and unforgiving. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, a reminder of the night his first wife tried to kill him before running off with his foreman and half his cattle. That was 7 years ago, and since then, Cassian had rebuilt everything she tried to ruin. The Holt Ranch now covered 15,000 acres of great grazing land, with 3,000 cows and 50 top-notch horses. The ranch house was a giant wooden stone building with a porch that let him see his whole world. Inside, heavy furniture showed he was here to stay, and elk and bear heads on the walls proved he was a crack shot. But even with all this, Cassian was haunted by what he didn't have. His big house felt empty. At night, after work, he'd sit on his porch with whiskey, staring at the horizon, thinking of the sons he should have had by now, boys to carry his name and keep his work going after he was gone. His ranch hands respected him, but were a bit scared of him. There was Jake Morrison, a 50-year-old guy who'd worked for Cassian forever and knew when to talk or stay quiet. There was young Tommy Briggs, just 18, great with horses and eager to prove himself. And there were a dozen others, drifters and cowboys, who stayed because Cassian paid well and only asked for loyalty and hard work. The folks in Coyote Gulch knew Cassian kept his word, whether it was a promise or a warning. When a drought hit 3 summers ago, he shared his water with neighbors for free. When rustlers stole from the valley, he led the ranchers to chase them off to Colorado. But they also knew not to cross him. Justice was quick and final, and he never forgot a wrong done to him. It was a Tuesday morning in late September, with golden aspen trees and chilly air, when Mariah June stumbled into Cassian's world. She'd been walking for 3 days along a dusty road that linked the territory's lonely towns like beads on a string. Her shoes were wrecked, so she wrapped her feet in pieces of her petticoat. Her dress, once blue, was now dusty and patched, looking like a quilt of bad luck. Mariah June Whitmore was 21, but tough times had aged her face. Her hair, like fall oak leaves, was braided down her back, and her green eyes showed deep sadness. She used to be pretty like prairie flowers, bright but delicate. But like those flowers, she'd learned to dig deep roots and bend with the wind instead of breaking. The barn fire that took everything happened on a wild, windy night in Kansas. Her dad's small farm, 20 acres of wheat and a few chickens, was their whole life. When lightning hit the barn, the flames spread faster than you could pray. Her dad died trying to save their cows, and her mom died 3 days later, her heart broken by loss. Mariah buried them in the church cemetery, sold what little was left to pay her dad's hidden debts, and headed to Wyoming, where her mom's sister supposedly lived. She had 57 cents, a letter that might not even help, and a tiny hope that family still mattered in a world that crushed the weak. She walked, hitched rides on supply wagons when kind drivers helped, and slept under endless stars. The nights were tough with wild sounds and only memories for company. But every morning she got up and kept going west, believing there was something better than just surviving. When she saw the Holt Ranch from a hill, her tired heart jumped. The house stood tall and strong, with smoke from its chimney promising warmth. The corrals had shiny horses, and the cows in the fields meant wealth she couldn't imagine. This was what winning looked like out here. Not just surviving, but beating the wild. She didn't plan to stop. Her goal was Coyote Gulch to find her aunt. But her legs gave out, and she grabbed a fence post to keep from falling as the world spun. Hoofbeats made her look up, and she saw the biggest man ever. Cassian Holt rode his black horse like a king ruling his land. His presence was huge, and when his cold eyes locked on her, Mariah felt something click between them. Something neither understood, but both felt deep down. He got off his horse smoothly, like someone used to being in charge, and she had to look up to meet his eyes. "You lost, girl?" His voice was like far-off thunder, deep and strong, hinting at trouble. Mariah stood taller, finding pride she didn't know she had. "Not lost, sir. Just heading to town." Cassian looked at her torn dress, wrapped feet, and thin face, seeing she hadn't eaten much. But he also saw how she stood proud, with a spark in her green eyes like a wild horse. "When did you last eat?" he asked, more like an order than a question. "I'm fine, thanks," she lied, pride and need making her say it. Cassian studied her, seeing the truth behind her words. "This girl, woman," he corrected, noticing her grown-up shape despite her youth, "is about to collapse." But she faced him like a cornered cat, brave and fierce. Something about her grabbed him, like a sticker on cloth, making him think of the sons he needed and the legacy he wanted. "My ranch," he said, pointing to the house with a big hand. "My rules. First rule, nobody goes hungry on Holt land. You'll come to the house, eat, and clean up." It wasn't a question, and Mariah heard the tone of total control. But instead of backing down, she felt a spark of defiance. She'd been making her own choices since she was 16 and had survived. Things that would have broken others. She wasn't going to be bossed around like a kid or a servant, no matter how desperate she was. "That's kind of you, Mr. Holt." Cassian Holt. "Mr. Holt, but I don't take handouts." A hint of a smile flickered in his cold eyes. "Not a handout, an investment. You look like you can handle hard work. I've got more work than workers. Clean up, and you might find a job here." The offer hung between them like smoke, hinting at things they didn't say out loud. Mariah felt his eyes on her, lingering on her waist and throat. She wasn't naive. She knew what men like Cassian expected from girls like her. But she also knew she didn't have many choices left. "What kind of work?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Work that pays and gives you a place to sleep," Cassian said. Then, sure of himself, he added, "Work that could lead to more for the right woman." The words meant more than they seemed, and Mariah felt a chill in her gut. But with the fear came something else. A sense that this man, for all his power and wildness, was offering her a way to survive in a world that had taken everything she loved. "I'll work for fair pay," she said finally. "Nothing more, nothing less." Cassian's smile was slow and risky, like dawn over a battlefield. "We'll see about that, Miss June." "Mariah June, Miss June." He tipped his hat, part polite, part claiming. "Welcome to the Holt Ranch." As he helped her onto his horse behind him, Mariah felt his warm, solid back against her chest and wondered if she'd just made the best or worst choice of her life. Either way, she wasn't walking alone anymore. For now, that was enough. The house looked bigger as they got closer, its windows shining like eyes watching her. Somewhere in her mind, a voice whispered that she'd just crossed a line she might not come back from. The bathwater was the first hot water Mariah had felt in weeks, and she sank into it with a happy sigh. Mrs. Henderson, Cassian's housekeeper, a strict 50-year-old with kind eyes and rough hands, gave her lavender soap and a clean dress from some woman who'd lived there before. Mariah didn't ask about the dress's owner, and Mrs. Henderson didn't say, "Your skin and bones." "Child," Mrs. Henderson said, setting out towels. "Haven't seen a girl so thin since the bad winter of '72. Mr. Holt's got plenty of beef. We'll fatten you up." Mariah's reflection in the mirror showed a stranger, thin cheeks and sharp angles, where she used to be soft. At 21, she should have been in her prime, but hardship had stripped away everything extra. Still, she saw traces of her old self under the tiredness. The dress Mrs. Henderson brought was blue wool, well-made and fancy. It fit okay, though it was loose where curves should have been. As she braided her wet hair, Mariah wondered about the woman who'd worn it before. What happened to her? An hour later, she went down the main stairs and found Cassian in his study. The room screamed money, and smarts with leather books on the walls and a huge desk like a throne. A painting of a stern man who looked like Cassian, probably his dad, hung behind the desk. Cassian stood with his back to her, looking out at his land. He'd changed into dark pants and a white shirt that stretched over his wide shoulders. When he turned, his face softened for a second before going back to his usual control. "Better," he said, his voice approving, making her feel proud despite herself. "Mrs. Henderson feed you?" "Yes, sir. Thank you. Sit." He pointed to a chair across from his desk, and Mariah sat carefully, feeling his eyes on her every move. "We need to talk about your situation." His formal tone made her wary. "My situation?" Cassian walked around his desk slowly, like someone used to making a point. When he sat, the chair creaked, and his intense gaze trapped her. "You're 21 alone with just the clothes on your back, no family, no prospects, no protection out here. That's not just bad luck, it's dangerous." Her cheeks got hot. "I can take care of myself." "Can you?" His question was soft but heavy. "You were half dead this morning. One more day on that road and the vultures would have got you." His blunt words hit hard, but Mariah met his stare. "I'm tougher than I look. Toughness won't stop a bullet or a knife in the dark. Won't stop men who see a pretty young woman alone and take what they want." His voice got quieter, closer. "This isn't Kansas Farms, Miss June. This is the frontier, where the law is what a man makes with his hands." Her throat felt dry. "What are you saying?" Cassian leaned back, looking at her like he was sizing up a cow. "I'm saying we make a deal. Marriage." The word hit like thunder, and Mariah felt the world tilt. Marriage. A business deal. Cassian went on, calm as ever. "You need protection, a place to live. I need sons to carry my name and inherit my work. We can give each other what we need." Her hands clenched. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood and looked out the window again. "You're young, healthy, smart enough to survive weeks alone. You're not afraid of work and you don't break easy. That's what I need for my kid's mom." His casual talk about her like she was cattle made her mad. "And if I say, no?" Cassian turned, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "You can go to town, but once you leave my protection, you're on your own. A woman alone in Coyote Gulch doesn't stay alone long." The soft threat made the room feel smaller. "You're saying I have no choice. You always have a choice." He stepped closer and she had to look up. "But some choices are better." "I'm offering comfort, safety, a purpose. Your kids would have everything. They'd inherit an empire. And what do you want from me?" His smile was slow and wolf-like. "3 strong boys to carry the Holt name, starting tonight." The words burned like a hot iron, marking this moment as a turning point. Mariah's heart pounded as she realized what he was asking. A cold deal, not a real marriage with no talk of love. "You're talking about buying me," she whispered. "I'm talking about survival," Cassian said calmly. "Yours and mine. I need heirs from a woman who won't betray me or leave when things get hard. You need a home and food. It's not romantic, but it's real." Mariah stood, needing space. Her mom's wedding ring, hidden in her clothes, felt hot against her skin, reminding her of what marriage should be. Love, teamwork, devotion. Not this cold trade. "And if I can't give you sons? If I only have girls or none at all?" Something hard passed over Cassian's face. Then you'd fail your main job, but I'm willing to take that risk. His blunt answer made her knees weak. This man would toss her aside like a broken tool if she didn't deliver. But even as fear hit her, the part of her that survived the fire and the long walk west started thinking. What exactly would I do? She asked, keeping her voice steady. You'd run this house with all the power that comes with it. You'd manage the staff, handle home stuff, represent the Holt name in town, and share my bed until you give me the sons I need. His casual talk about such personal things made her blush. She'd been kissed twice, once by a Kansas boy, once by a shady preacher. The idea of being close with this giant man made her stomach flip, maybe with fear, maybe with something else. I need time to think. No, his word was final. I'm not patient, Miss June, and chances like this don't wait. Answer now. The demand hung like a drawn knife. Mariah looked around the rich study, thinking of its warmth and safety, then the cold road to nowhere. Her aunt might be dead. The letter was 3 years old and people died fast out here. Even if she found family, what then? A life of begging, always the poor cousin. If I say yes, she said slowly, would you be faithful? Cassian's eyebrows rose. You're in no place to ask for things. It's not a demand. It's a question. He looked at her for a long time, seeing something new. I don't care about mistresses or saloon girls. If you do your part, I'll do mine. It wasn't love, but it was more than many wives got out here. Mariah felt her mom's ring and made her choice with the same guts that got her across 3 states. 3 months, she said, stronger than she felt. Give me 3 months to prove I'm worth your name. If you're happy with me as your wife, then we'll talk kids. His eyes narrowed. You're in no place to bargain. I'm not bargaining. I'm offering a test run to make sure we both like this deal before kids come into it. Mariah lifted her chin, showing all her pride. A businessman like you gets the value of testing a deal. For a moment, she thought he'd say no. His jaw tightened and his eyes flashed. But then he smiled, a wolf's smile full of danger. Fine, 3 months. But you'll be my wife in every way from tonight on. The only thing I'm waiting on is kids. His warm voice made her pulse race, but she nodded. I understand. Then we've got a deal. He stepped closer, his big body radiating heat. The preacher's coming soon. Mrs. Henderson's making dinner. We'll be married by sunset. And tonight you'll learn what it means to be Mrs. Cassian Holt. As if on cue, Mrs. Henderson appeared. Preacher's here, Mr. Holt, and I've got your mom's wedding dress ready. It'll fit her with a few pins. Mariah felt the world spin as her choice sank in. In less than an hour, she'd be married to a man she'd just met, who saw her as a tool for his plans. But as Cassian's big hand touched her back, guiding her to her future, she felt a spark. Not love, that'd be crazy, but maybe excitement for the challenge. She'd survived a fire that burned her world. She'd walked across 3 states with nothing but hope. She could survive Cassian Holt, too. Maybe she'd even make him see strength came in ways he hadn't thought of. The wedding was quick and businesslike, done in Cassian's study with Mrs. Henderson and Jake Morrison watching. The preacher, Reverend Walsh, rushed through the vows like he was scared someone would change their mind. When Cassian kissed her to seal it, his lips were warm but distant, like claiming a prize, not showing love. Now, 3 days into marriage, Mariah was learning ranch life with the same grit that got her across the frontier. She got up before dawn to help Mrs. Henderson with breakfast, her hands remembering her mom's cooking lessons. The kitchen was cozy, smelling of bread and coffee, and the familiar chores felt good. But outside, she saw the size of Cassian's world. The Holt Ranch was like a small town, with a blacksmith shop, bunkhouse, and even a tiny schoolhouse for kids who never came. Dozens of men worked the huge land, starting before sunrise and ending after sunset. Ranch don't sleep, Jake Morrison told her that first morning, showing her around. The old foreman wasn't sure about Cassian's quick marriage, but he warmed up when she showed she wasn't afraid of work. Cattle need tending, horses need training, and there's always something to fix or build. Mariah dove into learning everything, names of the workers, types of cows, and how to run such a big place. Cassian watched her, maybe with approval, though his face was hard to read. On her fourth morning as Mrs. Holt, she found a workshop behind the barn. It was small and tidy, full of tools and half-done projects that showed real skill. Furniture in progress lined the walls, and the air smelled of cedar and oil. She was looking at a beautifully carved chair when footsteps made her turn. Cassian stood in the doorway, his big frame blocking the sun. In his hands was a wooden comb carved with leaves and vines. "You're up early," he said, stepping inside. "I wanted to see the whole ranch," Mariah said, pointing to the furniture. "Did you make these?" A hint of embarrassment crossed his face. Winter work keeps the hands busy when it's too cold outside. But Mariah saw the lie in the perfect joints and pretty designs. This wasn't just busy work. It was art. "They're beautiful," she said honestly. "My dad carved a bit, but not like this." Cassian's face softened a little. He held out the comb. "Made this for you. Thought you'd need something. Nice for your hair." The comb was gorgeous, carved from cherry wood and polished shiny. The leaf pattern matched the chair, done with a care that seemed impossible from his big hands. As she took it, their fingers touched, and she felt a spark. "It's lovely," she said, touching the smooth wood. "Thank you. Hair like yours deserves better than that broken thing you've got," Cassian said gruffly, like he was shy about it. The compliment warmed her cheeks. Since their wedding, they'd been polite but distant, careful around meals and house stuff. This bit of kindness surprised her. "I should check the horses," Cassian said, heading out. "Jake wants to show you the books this afternoon. You'll need to know them to run the house budget." After he left, Mariah stood in the workshop, turning the comb over. The small gift hinted at a softer side to Cassian. Maybe this marriage wasn't just business after all. That afternoon tested her as the ranch's lady. She was checking budgets with Mrs. Henderson when galloping horses made them look out the window. Riders came up, led by a tall, lean man in fancy clothes. "That's Marcus Steele," Mrs. Henderson said, sounding mad. "Owns the ranch south of here. He and Mr. Holt don't get along." Mariah watched Cassian come out of the barn, looking ready for trouble. Even from far off, she saw the tension in both men. "What's their problem?" she asked. "Water rights, mostly. Steele's been trying to buy up small ranches to grow his land. He's offered to buy this place, but Mr. Holt says it's not for sale." Through the window, Mariah saw the talk get heated. Steele waved his arms, while Cassian stood like a rock, calm but dangerous. When Steele rode off with his men, the air felt thick. At dinner, Cassian was quiet, his face dark like a storm. Mariah knew questions wouldn't help, but his worry made her want to help. "Can I do anything?" she asked softly. He looked up, surprised. "Help with what?" "Whatever's bothering you. I'm new, but I'm your wife now. Your problems are mine." For a second, something soft crossed his face. Then his guard went up. "Steele's pushing about water rights," he said. "Says the drought gives him a legal claim to our streams. It's nonsense, but he's got lawyers, and lawyers can twist nonsense into law." Mariah put down her fork, studying him. "What does he really want?" "My land. All of it." Cassian's voice was sure. "He wants the whole valley, and this ranch is his biggest problem. Then we'll make sure he doesn't get it." Her words surprised him. "We? I said your problems are mine," she said, meeting his eyes. "I don't know much about water rights or ranching, but I know about fighting for what's yours. I didn't survive all I've been through. To lose the first real home I've had since my parents died." Something changed in Cassian's face. Recognition. "You call this home?" "I'm starting to," she said honestly. "This place, these people, they're worth protecting." He nodded slowly, like her words settled something. "Steele won't quit easy. He takes what he wants. Then he'll have to face both of us." That night, brushing her hair with Cassian's comb, Mariah thought about how much had changed in days. She wasn't the desperate girl who stumbled here anymore. She was Mrs. Cassian Holt, with a purpose beyond surviving. When Cassian joined her in their bedroom, where they'd been polite since the wedding, she saw him notice her using his gift. His small smile made her heart skip. "Suits you," he said, unbuttoning his shirt. "Thanks for the comb and showing me the workshop." He paused, looking at her in the mirror. "You meant what you said about this being home?" She turned to face him. I meant it. This place is worth defending, Cassian, and so are you. The words built a bridge neither expected. For a moment, she thought he'd say something to admit the connection growing despite their deal, but he just nodded and got ready for bed. As they lay down with space between them, Mariah thought about Marcus Steele and his threat. She'd lost. One home to fire and wouldn't lose another to greed. Whatever came, she'd face it as Mrs. Cassian Holt, with all the strength that meant. Outside, the wind whispered across the prairie, hinting at more challenges. But inside the ranch house, Mariah felt something new, belonging to a place worth defending. 2 weeks into marriage, Mariah found she was great at organizing. The ranch's messy ledgers, written by Jake and Cassian, got her neat notes and better systems. She fixed supply schedules, spotted feed waste, and suggested pasture changes to fit more cows. "Girl's got a knack for numbers," Jake told Cassian one evening, not knowing Mariah overheard from the kitchen. "Sharp as a tack, sees things we miss." Cassian grunted, but Mariah heard pride in it. Her work was noticed, and it felt good, like when her dad praised her farm bookkeeping years ago. She kept a secret journal under her clothes in the dresser. Each night she wrote about ranch work, the land, and her growing feelings for Cassian. The journal was her safe place, to be honest. October 15th. Cassian watched me with the books today. He looked at me differently, like he sees more than just a baby maker. Sometimes his guard drops and I see the man underneath. Yesterday he helped me off the wagon from town, and his hands stayed on my waist longer than needed. I think about those moments too much. Her first trip to Coyote Gulch as Mrs. Holt surprised her. People respected her but were curious about Cassian's quick marriage. Some women were suspicious, wondering why she'd marry a tough guy like him. Others, like Mrs. Abernathy from the store, were kind. "Sarah Whitmore, your aunt, died last winter," Mrs. Abernathy said gently. "Flu. Took her fast. She talked about you. Said her sister had a smart girl in Kansas." The news hurt, cutting her last family tie, but it proved marrying Cassian was right. Without her aunt, she'd be alone. Easy prey for bad men. "You did good in town," Cassian said on the ride home. "The women respect you already. That matters more than you think, because their husbands do business with me, and a wife can make a man's life easy or hard based on what she thinks of his friends." He glanced at her. "You get the game better than most." His praise warmed her more than it should. She was starting to care about his opinion, which scared and excited her. That afternoon, the Brennan family visited from the East Ranch. Thomas Brennan, a 50-year-old with kind eyes, and his wife Margaret, a warm, motherly woman, welcomed Mariah. Their son David, about 25 with sandy hair and a big smile, paid her extra attention. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," David said, holding her. "Hand a bit long. Cassian's lucky to have such a pretty wife." The compliment was fine, but Mariah saw Cassian's jaw tighten. When David offered to show her their horses, Cassian cut in. "My wife's got enough to learn about our stock before seeing anyone else's," he said, his voice warning David off. His possessiveness should have annoyed her. She could handle a chat, but it kind of pleased her. It showed Cassian cared, even if he wouldn't say it. That night, David's visit left tension. "He was just friendly," Mariah said, brushing her hair. "Guys like him aren't just friendly with married women," Cassian said, his voice rough, maybe jealous. "Especially not young, pretty ones." His words hung there and her cheeks warmed. He'd never called her pretty before, only practical stuff about her health. "You think I'm pretty?" she asked quietly, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Cassian paused, his shirt half off. For a second, his cool mask cracked, showing raw want. "I think you know what you are, Mariah." Her name in his rough voice sent shivers down her spine. He'd always called her Mrs. Holt or nothing. This felt close, different. "Do I?" she asked, turning to him. He crossed the room in 2 steps, stopping close enough for her to feel his warmth. "You're 21, tough enough to cross 3. States alone, smart enough to fix my systems, and brave enough to call this home despite what I want from you." His voice dropped. "And yeah, you're pretty enough to make men forget their manners." His words were a challenge. Her pulse raced as their relationship shifted. They weren't just polite strangers tied by a deal anymore. Something deeper was waking up. "Is that what worries you?" she asked. "That I'll forget my duties?" His laugh was sharp. "What worries me is I'm starting to care more about keeping you than the sons you're supposed to give me." His words shocked them both. For a second, he looked open, then shut down. But she'd seen it. He cared as much as she did, and it changed everything. "The 3 months aren't up," she said softly. "No, they're not." His eyes held, hers, intense. "But it's harder every day to remember why I agreed to wait." The air crackled with possibilities. Mariah felt the pull of attraction that had grown since they met, sharpened by every kind act and glance. It'd be easy to give in, let passion erase their careful lines. But crossing that line would mean wanting him, not just following their deal, and that scared her. "I should get ready for bed," she said, breaking the moment. Cassian nodded, eyes on her. "Yeah, you should." As they lay down with their usual space, Mariah felt every breath, every move. Her journal tomorrow would struggle to capture this. Their marriage of convenience was turning into something unplanned. Outside, cows mooed, horses nickered, and the ranch settled into sleep, a life she was making hers. But tonight, her heartbeat joined those sounds, knowing her plans for staying distant were falling apart. In 3 days, it'd be 3 weeks. Since she came to the Holt Ranch, she'd become a wife, a homemaker, a partner in ways she didn't expect. But dangerously, she was falling for a man who married her for her womb, not her heart. The question keeping her awake was whether Cassian could love her back, or if she was headed for a heartbreak worse than any before. The silver locket was Cassian's mom's, and Mariah found it by accident while sorting his desk. It looked fragile next to the study's heavy furniture, guns, and bold ledgers. Inside was a tiny portrait of a woman with kind eyes and Cassian's strong jaw, painted with care that showed love and money. "You shouldn't touch my stuff," Cassian said from the doorway, his face blank. She'd been so caught up, she didn't hear him. "Sorry," she said, moving to close it. "I was organizing, and it was with business papers." "Leave it." His voice was rough as he crossed to her. "You might as well know about her." He took the locket gently, his thumb rubbing the silver. "Elizabeth Holt. Died when I was 12. Fever took her fast. My dad never got over it." His pain was clear, even if controlled. Mariah saw her husband in a new light. "She was beautiful," she said softly. "She was everything my dad wasn't. Kind, gentle, believed in people." His smile was bitter. "The ranch almost fell apart after she died because he couldn't think past his grief. That's when I learned loving someone makes you weak." His words explained his cold approach to their marriage, keeping feelings out, treating it like a deal. He was guarding against the pain that wrecked his dad. "Love doesn't always make you weak," Mariah said carefully. "Sometimes it makes you stronger." His laugh was harsh. "Tell that to my dad, who drank himself dead while the ranch crumbled. Tell that to every guy betrayed by a woman he trusted." His bitterness hinted at his own pain. Mariah thought of the scar on his face, the story Mrs. Henderson whispered about his first wife's betrayal. "Not all women are like her," she said quietly. "No." His eyes challenged her. "So tell me, Mariah, if a richer guy offered you a better deal tomorrow, would you stay with me out of loyalty? Or would you jump at a better life?" His question hurt, that he thought she'd betray him, but she saw the fear behind it, a man scared of being left again. "I'd stay," she said simply. "This is my home now, even if I can't promise love, even if our deal is about need, not feelings." She stepped closer, seeing his hidden fear. "Because I think you're wrong about love making people weak. It makes them fight harder for what matters." He stared, searching her face for truth. Then he fastened the locket around her neck. The silver was warm from his touch, like a gift and a promise. "My mom would have liked you," he said gruffly. "She said a man needs a woman with guts to stand by him out here." Before she could answer, galloping horses drew them to the window. Riders came fast, tense and ready for trouble. "Trouble," Cassian muttered, grabbing his rifle from the wall. Jake Morrison burst in, face grim. Boss, Steele's men cut the south fence and took 50 cows. Tommy saw them heading to the territory line. Mariah's stomach dropped. 50 cows were big money, but worse, it was a challenge to Cassian's power. Out here, a man who couldn't protect his stuff lost it fast. "How many men?" Cassian asked, checking his rifle. 6, maybe 8. Riding hard but moving the cows slow. Probably planning to sell them quick at the railhead. Cassian's jaw tightened with rage. "Get the men ready. We leave in 10. As Jake ran out, Mariah faced the raw truth of frontier life. The men she cared about were riding into danger, maybe a fight that could kill them. And Cassian, the man she was starting to love despite herself, was leading them. "How dangerous is this?" she asked, dreading the answer. "Dangerous enough." He strapped on his gun belt. "Steele's men won't give up easy, and they've got a head start. Then don't go." The words slipped out, born of fear and realizing how much she could lose. He froze. "What?" Her cheeks burned, but she stood tall. "Don't go. Send Jake and the others, but you don't have to—" "What? Defend my own land? Show I won't let Marcus Steele rob me." His voice was quiet but dangerous. "Think I'm the guy who lets others fight for him? I think you're the guy this ranch can't lose," she snapped, dropping all pretense. "What's the point? Of getting 50 cows back if you die?" Her fear surprised him. His face softened, a hint of tenderness in his eyes. "You're worried about me," he said, almost a question. "Of course I am. You're my husband." "Am I?" His question was soft but heavy. "Or just the guy who gave you a roof?" The air crackled with hidden truths. They'd hit a turning point where their careful masks couldn't hide their growing feelings. "You're the man I chose," she said quietly. "The man I worry about in danger, the man I want to have kids with, not because of our deal, but because I love him." Her words marked the moment like a hot iron. Cassian's face showed shock, disbelief, maybe hope. "Mariah!" Jake's voice cut in from the yard. "Boss! Men are ready!" Cassian's jaw tightened, annoyed at the interruption. He turned back to her, unreadable. "We'll finish this when I get back." "You better come back," she said, all her courage in her voice. "I meant it, and I won't lose my chance to say it again." A smile touched his mouth. "Yes, ma'am." Then he was gone, riding off with his men toward the south pastures. As the dust settled, Mariah knew everything had changed. She'd admitted her love, bared her heart, and made herself open to heartbreak she'd sworn to avoid. But touching the locket, thinking of the kind woman in the portrait, she knew some risks were worth it. Love made you vulnerable, but it gave you something to fight for. If Cassian was worth fighting for, and she believed he was, she'd stand by him, whether he loved her back or not. The afternoon dragged, filled with the awful waiting women faced in a violent world. But Mariah had survived worse, and she'd survived this. She had a house to run and a place to protect. When Cassian came back, she refused to think otherwise. They'd finished their talk, and maybe he'd find the courage to see love wasn't the weakness he thought. The tomahawk above the fireplace gleamed, old but sharp. Mariah stared at it, waiting for news, thinking about frontier life. Mrs. Henderson found her there as the sun sank. "That was White Bear's, an Arapaho chief," she said, sewing. "He gave it to Mr. Holt's dad 20 years ago after they made peace over grazing rights. It stayed here, showing some fights can end with honor, not blood." "But not all," Mariah said, thinking of the men out there. "No, child, some men like Marcus Steele only get force. They think kindness is weakness and honor is dumb." That afternoon, 3 ranchers visited, pretending to be social but sharing worrying news about Steele. "He's pushing small ranches to sell," Thomas Brennan said, worried. "Offers sound good till you see they trap folks. If you say no, your fences get cut, water gets ruined, cows get lost. Nothing you can prove, but it makes life impossible." The pattern was scary. Steele was trying to control the valley with sneaky pressure and threats. Stealing Cassian's cows was just his latest move. "He's testing us," Mariah said, realizing, "seeing how far he can push." "And if we don't push back hard," Samuel Hayes added, "he'll know we're weak and keep going till we break." The men looked surprised at her sharp thinking, but Mariah knew rural life. Her dad taught her about balancing cooperation and competition. Some fights were about more than now. They were about power later. As evening came, with no word from Cassian, Mariah planned for the worst. If he didn't come back, she'd hold the ranch together till help came. It scared her but made her stronger. "You love him," Mrs. Henderson said, watching her. "Is it obvious?" Mariah asked. "Only to someone who knows love. The way you watch for him. Light up when he's near, pace like a trapped cat since he left." Mrs. Henderson smiled. "Does he love you back?" That question haunted Mariah since her confession. Cassian seemed surprised, maybe happy, but didn't say it back. She knew trust was harder for him than passion, and love was his biggest fear. "I don't know," she said, "but I think he cares more than he planned. Child, he's been hooked since he brought you here. A blind woman could see how he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. He's just too stubborn to admit it." Hoofbeats outside sent them to the window. In the dusk, Mariah counted riders. Too few at first, her heart sinking. Then, more appeared, herding cows. Relief hit as she saw Cassian, alive. 20 minutes later, he walked in, dusty, torn clothes, blood on his knuckles, tired but okay. His eyes found hers, relief matching hers. "The cows?" she asked. "Got all 50 back," he said, voice rough. "Steele's men didn't fight much once we showed we meant business." "Our men? Tommy got shot in the shoulder, but it's clean. Doc's with him." He stepped closer, smelling of dust and sweat. "We need to talk." He led her to the study, closing the door. The air felt heavy with their unfinished talk. "You said you loved me," he started. "I did," she said, chin up. No regrets. "And I meant it." He looked out the window at the dark. "Love's a luxury I can't afford, Mariah. Not in this life, not with what I'm building." "Can't afford or scared of it?" Her question made him turn, eyes flashing. "Careful, wife. You're on thin ice." "Good," she said fiercely. "Maybe someone needs to say hiding behind your dad's pain and your ex-wife's betrayal isn't strength. It's fear." Silence hung, tense and risky. His hands clenched, and she wondered if she'd gone too far. But she'd chosen honesty. "You want to know what I learned today?" she went on, steady. "This ranch, this life means nothing if we're too scared to fight for it. Not just against Steele, for each other. I brought you here for kids, not to fix me. Maybe. But you married a woman with her own mind, and I won't apologize for it." She stepped closer, seeing his pain. "You want sons? Give them a dad who can love, not just fight. Give them a legacy worth having." Something shifted in his face, a crack in his armor. "You think it's that easy? I think it's that hard. But some things are worth it." They stood in the lamplight, two stubborn people caught between want and fear, safety and connection. The locket at her throat gleamed, a reminder of love that once lived here before pain poisoned it. "I can't promise love," he said softly. "Then promise. Honesty. Promise partnership. Promise you'll see me as more than a tool." Her words were a bridge they weren't sure they could cross. But as he looked at the woman who'd made his house a home, stood by him in crisis and challenged him, he felt something thaw. "I can promise that," he said. It wasn't love, but it was a start. As Mariah stepped into his arms, she realized some victories were about walls coming down, not land won. Outside, cows settled. Men risked their lives for Cassian's honor, and the ranch was safe for now. Bigger fights were coming. Steele wouldn't quit, and battles would test more than cows and land. But tonight, in Cassian's arms, Mariah felt hope grow. They had a foundation, honesty, respect, and maybe love. It wasn't there yet, but it could grow with care. The forged deed came on a Tuesday, delivered by a nervous clerk who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mariah signed for it, while Cassian was checking pastures, and when she opened it, she knew they were in trouble. The fancy paper had official seals and confusing legal words, but it said Marcus Steele claimed the Holt Ranch's original land grant was wrong, and his family owned the northern part, including the house, barns, and best grazing land. Her hands shook as she read it again. If Steele won in court, they'd lose everything Cassian built. The ranch would be left with bad land that couldn't support much. But something bugged her. The words were too perfect, the paper too clean for something old. When Cassian came back, she met him at the door, scared. "What is it?" he asked, seeing her face. "This came from the courthouse." She handed him the deed, watching him get mad as he read. "Cassian, if this is real—" "It's not," he was sure. "My dad filed those claims himself. I was with him in Cheyenne to make sure it was done right. But how do we prove it if Steele has papers saying his claim's older? Because his family never owned land here." He pulled out a folder of papers from his desk. "My dad kept copies of everything. Deals, filings, letters with the government, and a journal of every big ranch event." As he spread papers out, Mariah looked closer. Her hidden education kicked in as she read legal words and checked dates and signatures. "This is weird," she said, pointing to a problem in Steele's deed. "The seal says 1847, but the territory didn't use that design till 1851. I know from helping my dad with farm papers." Cassian looked up. "You can read legal stuff?" Her cheeks got hot. She'd slipped. She'd hidden her smarts, playing a simple farm girl who could only do basic math. "Yes, my dad thought girls should learn like boys. He taught me reading, writing, math, even some law and business." She met his eyes, daring him to judge. "I've understood every paper here since I arrived." Silence roared. Cassian stared like she was a stranger, his face showing surprise, respect, maybe betrayal. "You've been acting less smart than you are," he said slowly. "I've been surviving," she said. "Men don't like smart women. It scares them, makes them feel less. I learned it's safer to be underestimated, even by my husband." Her words hurt him, and her chest tightened. "Especially my husband. You married me for sons, not to challenge you or show you up." He studied her, quiet. "What else are you hiding?" "Nothing that changes our deal," she said carefully. "Our deal?" He said it bitterly. "Is that still all this is?" Her confession of love and his promise of honesty hung between them. Her lie, even if meant well, hurt their trust. "No," she said quietly. "It stopped being just a deal weeks ago, but I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared you'd see my smarts as a threat, not a help. Scared you'd think I was trying to trick you or make you look dumb." She pointed to the papers. "Scared of this moment." His jaw tightened, but his voice was thoughtful. "You're right. I might have seen it as a threat at first, but you're wrong about now." He stepped closer, eyes intense. "Right now, I need every edge. If my wife's smart enough to spot fake papers, I'll take it." His words surprised them both. For a control freak, accepting her help, especially when it meant admitting she knew more, was huge. "So what do we do?" she asked, focusing on the crisis. "Prove Steele's papers are fake before the judge comes next week." She bent over the papers, thinking. "We need to match signatures on his papers with real ones from officials, and check the courthouse in Cheyenne for old records." "That's a 3-day ride," Cassian said. "We'd need someone who knows the system." "Or," Mariah said, an idea forming, "someone who can study these papers closely and testify they're fake. The judge might not trust a local, but he'd listen to an expert from back east, like Professor Morrison from Denver. He's known for checking old papers." Cassian stared. "How do you know about him?" "I read, Cassian. Newspapers, law journals, anything useful." She stood tall. "I hid my education, but I never stopped using it." He smiled, a hunter's smile. "Can you get Morrison here?" "I can try, but Steele won't wait while we build our case." Riders outside pulled their eyes to the window. Marcus Steele led a group, oozing confidence. "He's here to gloat," Cassian said, voice hard. "Or make demands," Mariah said, grabbing the papers. "He doesn't need to know what we found." Cassian nodded, reaching for his gun. "Stay inside. This could get messy." "I'm not hiding," she said firmly. "I'm Mrs. Cassian Holt, and this is my home. If Steele's got threats, he can say them to both of us." His look was mixed. Annoyed, impressed, maybe loving. "You'll be the death of me, woman." "Not if I can help it," she said, tucking the locket under her dress. "We'll fight this together and win." As they faced Steele's arrival, Mariah felt whole. Their masks were falling, showing the true partnership beneath. She wasn't just a desperate girl anymore, and he wasn't just a rancher using her. They were husband and wife, united by purpose and trust. Whatever came, they'd face it as Equals, with all their strength and smarts. Steele's boots on the porch signaled the real fight was starting. The Winchester rifle, Cassian's dad's favorite, leaned by the fireplace, loaded and ready. It had helped build and protect this life. Now, Cassian and Mariah worked all night, preparing to fight Steele's legal attack. 3 days after Steele's visit, they'd been busy gathering proof. The meeting was tense but polite. Steele acted generous, sure he'd win, while Cassian stayed cool, hiding his plan. "I'm being kind, Holt," Steele said, fake nice. "I could take it all in court, but I'll let you keep the South pastures. Enough for a small ranch, maybe 500 cows. You could live okay." "How nice," Cassian said, voice low. "And in return, you give up the house and the deed to the land." "No mess, no costly fights, easy," Mariah spoke up firm. "Mr. Steele, a big decision like that needs us to look at all the papers carefully. We'll need time." Steele's eyes narrowed, maybe sensing she was trouble. "The judge comes next week, Mrs. Holt. Don't waste time fighting a lost cause." With the judge due in 3 days, their work was frantic. Professor Morrison agreed to check their papers, but wouldn't arrive till the hearing. Everything hung on making a strong case with what they had. "The signature stuff looks good," Mariah said, papers spread on the dining table. Now a war room. She used a magnifying glass from Cassian's desk. "Robert Sullivan's signature on Steele's deed doesn't match real ones from the archives." Cassian looked up from his timeline of Valley land deals. "Sullivan was the recorder from 1845 to 1850. If Steele's papers were real, he'd have signed them. Look here." She handed him the glass, pointing. "Whoever faked this copied a 1849 signature. But in 1847, Sullivan hurt his hand hunting. His signatures then have a shaky look, this one doesn't." Her sharp eye impressed and stung Cassian. How much had she hidden? How much better could they have worked if she'd been open? "You should have told me," he said quietly. "Would you have believed me, or thought I was a desperate girl trying to seem important?" The truth was tricky. The man who married her 6 weeks ago might have felt threatened. But the man who'd seen her make his house a home, stand by him, love her courage, that man saw her smarts as a gift. "I'd have been dumb not to," he said. A knock interrupted. Jake brought bad news. "Boss, 6 armed guys checked into the hotel. Tommy says they're Steele's men, pros who know their guns." It meant Steele wasn't just playing legal games. He was ready to use force if the court failed. "Hired guns?" Cassian asked. "Looks like it. The kind cattle bosses hire to fix problems for good." Mariah's stomach froze. The legal fight was turning into frontier violence. "He's planning to scare the judge or take us out if he loses," Cassian said grimly. "We need to prep for more than court." The next 2 days were a blur, not just legal work. Cassian placed trusted men around the ranch, armed and ready. Mariah kept analyzing papers while preparing to defend their home. The night before the hearing, she studied Cassian's face in the lamplight. His usual hardness was back, like a man ready for war. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I should have dealt with Steele years ago," he said, calm as if talking about the weather. "And if we lose tomorrow, we lose everything we've built." He faced her. "Not everything. I've made plans to keep you safe." "Stop," she said sharply. "Don't make plans without me. We're in this together. This isn't your fight, Mariah. You married me for safety, not to die for land that might not be ours." His words hurt. He still saw her as someone who'd run. "You're wrong," she said, standing with anger. "I married you for safety, yes, but I chose to love you and make this home. I don't quit when things get hard." He stood, towering over her. "Love's a luxury we can't afford now. Love's the only thing worth fighting for." She put her hand on his heart. "Tomorrow I'm fighting for our life together, our kids, our legacy. If we lose, we start over together. But we won't lose, because we've got truth in each other." Her words broke his walls. His mask slipped, showing fear, not of losing the ranch, but her. "I love you," he said, surprising them both. "More than this land, my plans, anything." Tears pricked her eyes as their last barrier fell. "Trust me to stand with you tomorrow," she said. "Trust me to be worthy of that love." He pulled her close, holding her tight. "I'm scared," he whispered, "of losing everything again." "Me too," she said. But some things are worth that fear. They held each other. Two people who found love in a crazy way, ready to defend it against big odds. Outside, the wind shook the windows, and nightbirds called, their home's sounds, the life they built. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Cassian said, "these weeks with you were the best of my life." "They're not ending," Mariah said fiercely. "We'll win and have 50 years of happiness." He smiled despite the stakes. 50 years? At least. I'm a demanding wife. You already are. They talked all night, planning and sharing like couples rarely do. As dawn came, painting the sky pink and gold, they were as ready as they could be. Professor Morrison's train arrived on time, and he was everything Mariah hoped: smart, thorough, with credentials even judges respected. He confirmed the papers were fake, ready to testify. "The paper's wrong for 1847, he said as they rode to town. "The watermark wasn't used till 1850, and the ink's from after 1855. Whoever made these was good, but made mistakes." The Coyote Gulch courthouse was packed. Everyone knew this fight would shape future land disputes. Marcus Steele sat with two fancy Denver lawyers, looking sure of himself. His gunman sat in the crowd, a quiet threat. Judge Harrison, an old man with sharp eyes, wasn't happy about the tense vibe. "This will follow the law," he said, starting the session. "Anyone causing trouble will be kicked out and charged." Steele's lawyers laid out their case smoothly, claiming his family owned the land since 1847, before Cassian's dad. Their papers looked real, their arguments solid. But Mariah noticed cracks. Steele's lawyer dodged questions about paper trails, hesitated on witness details, and used careful words to avoid checkable facts. "Mr. Blackwood," the judge said, "you say these papers were filed in 1847, but there's no record of survey markers. How do you explain that?" Blackwood squirmed. "Survey rules were looser then, Your Honor." "Not that loose," the judge said dryly. "They weren't sloppy about land rights." Mariah felt hope, but their turn was the real test. Their lawyer, Peters, young but honest, stood nervously. "Your Honor, we believe Steele's papers are fake, made to steal land. We have expert testimony and proof." "That's a big claim, Mr. Peters," the judge said. "You better have strong evidence." "We do. I call Professor Richard Morrison." Morrison took the stand, calm and confident. His 20 years of document checking and court respect made him solid. "I studied the plaintiff's papers," he said. "The paper, ink, and signatures don't match 1847. The watermark's from 1850, the ink from after 1855. He showed a signature. Robert Sullivan hurt his hand in 1846. His 1847 signatures shake. This one doesn't, meaning it's copied from earlier. The crowd murmured. Even the judge looked impressed. Morrison's facts were unbeatable, and Steele's lawyer couldn't shake him. But Mariah's testimony sealed it. When Peters called her, the room buzzed. Women didn't usually testify in land fights. "Mrs. Holt, you helped analyze these papers. What's your background?" This was her moment to show her hidden smarts. "My dad taught me like a boy, reading, writing, math, some law and business." The crowd whispered, doubting a frontier woman could know so much. "What did you find?" Her voice grew strong. The legal words in Steele's papers used terms from 1849, like hereditaments and appurtenances for water rights, not used till the 1849 Water Rights Act. The judge leaned in. "You're sure?" "Yes, Your Honor. I studied territorial law for our land. Steele's papers use words that didn't exist when they were supposedly made." Steele's lawyer objected. "She's not a legal expert. She's sharing facts from public records," Peters said. "Not opinions." "Overruled," the judge said. "Go on, Mrs. Holt." Mariah laid out the fake terms, bad aging patterns, and survey errors that put boundaries in impossible places. "These aren't just fakes," she said, looking at the judge. "They're sloppy fakes showing they're new. Steele's trying to steal land the Holts legally owned for 15 years. The room erupted. Steele's face went pale, his gunman restless. The judge looked impressed. "Thank you, Mrs. Holt. Very clear." Steele's lawyer grilled her, but she stood firm, citing precedents and facts. When he said she was lying for Cassian, she said, I'm telling the truth to protect our home. Sitting back with Cassian, she felt his proud grip. She'd shown her full self, smarts and all, and he looked at her like he was the lucky one. The judge took a break before deciding, and the room buzzed. Mariah watched Steele whisper with his lawyers and gunmen, his face showing his plan was crumbling. She knew losing in court might not end their trouble. The wedding rings in Cassian's pocket were gold bands he'd had made when he realized their marriage was real. The first rings, borrowed from Mrs. Henderson, were for a quick deal. These were for choice, for love. But as the judge returned, the rings stayed hidden. The fight came first. After reviewing the evidence, the judge said, I find the plaintiff's claim invalid. Steele's papers are clear forgeries. Relief swept the Holt side, but Steele's face stayed hard, like he'd expected this and had a backup plan. I'm ordering an investigation into these fakes, the judge added. Fraud is a serious crime. His gavel ended Steele's legal fight, but as people left, Steele approached with his gunmen. Nice win, Holt, he said. Fake nice. But this isn't over. The law says it is, Cassian said, hand near his gun. Your claim's fake, and everyone knows. Law? Steele laughed coldly. Law's what powerful men make it, and I've got more power than you think. A gunman stepped up, eyes cold. There'll be an accident, he said, loud enough for Mariah. A fire, rustlers, or your wife gets lost and doesn't come back. The threat burned. Cassian reached for his gun, but Mariah stepped forward. Mr. Steele, she said, voice strong with her courtroom confidence. Threatening us in front of witnesses isn't smart. The judge is still nearby, and he'd love to hear about your accidents. Steele studied her, maybe seeing her strength for the first time. You're not what I expected, Mrs. Holt. No, she said, standing with Cassian. And neither's my husband. If you think we'll be scared by guns and threats, you're wrong. The standoff lasted heartbeats, tense enough to spark a fight. But Thomas Brennan arrived with a dozen armed ranchers, showing Cassian and Mariah weren't alone. Heard there might be trouble, Brennan said, hand on his gun. Thought we'd back our neighbors. The ranchers tipped the odds. Steele's men saw they couldn't win. This isn't over, Steele said, weaker now. Yes, it is, Cassian said firmly. Take your guns and leave my land. If I see you again, I'll assume you're here to steal or threaten my wife, and I'll act. His words carried love's certainty. Steele backed off, his men following. As they left, the tension faded. Ranchers congratulated Cassian and Mariah. You did great, Mrs. Holt, Brennan said. Never saw a woman handle court like that. Showed those city lawyers what frontier smarts look like. The praise meant a lot. She was part of this community now. But Cassian's look mattered most. Alone in the courthouse, he hugged her tight. You were amazing, he whispered. Watching you face Steele, give that testimony. I've never been prouder. We won, she said, the victory sinking in. We did more than win. We proved we're stronger together. He looked serious. Mariah, I need to say... She stopped him with a finger to his lips. I know what you're gonna say. My answer's yes. You don't know what I was gonna ask. You were gonna ask if I want to stay married by choice, build a real life with love and partnership. She smiled, glowing. Yes, Cassian. Yes to it all. He kissed her, full of passion and tenderness, a man who learned to take what's given, not demanded. He pulled out the rings. I had these made for us, he said, voice thick. Real rings for a real marriage. The gold bands had vines, like her comb. As he slid one on her finger, their love locked in place. I love you, Cassian Holt, she said, meaning every word. I love you, Mariah Holt. I promise respect, partnership, and all the kids we can love together. 3 strong boys, she teased. 3 strong kids, whatever God gives us. Raised with love, not just legacy. They left the courthouse hand in hand, feeling complete. They'd fought off a legal attack, faced threats, and chosen each other. Their ranch was more than land now. It was a family built on love. The sunset painted the sky gold and red as they rode home, to a future bright with hope. The wooden toy horse fit in Cassian's big hand, sanded smooth and polished to shine in the firelight. He'd carved it for weeks, its mane flowing, legs galloping, capturing the free spirit of frontier horses. 6 months after their court win, spring brought lush grass and heavy rains to Coyote Gulch, a season of promise. But for Mariah and Cassian, the real gift was her growing belly, her hand, resting on their coming child. "Boy or girl?" Cassian asked, showing her the toy horse. Mariah looked up from sewing tiny clothes, smiling, content at 22, glowing with pregnancy's grace. Morning sickness was gone, leaving energy and joy. "Either way, they'll love it," she said, touching the horse's mane. "It's so lively. I can see it running." The months since court had turned their marriage into a deep love story. Steele vanished to Colorado, chasing new schemes. His exit brought peace, letting them learn each other's ways, building a closeness that didn't need words. "I've been thinking about names," Mariah said, setting down her sewing. "Oh?" Cassian sat beside her, careful of her condition. "If it's a boy, James, after your dad." The name touched him, easing his complicated feelings about his father. "James Cassian Holt," he said, liking it. "And a girl?" "Elizabeth." "Mariah Holt," he said fast. "After my mom and the woman who saved us both." The names tied their child to family and hope. As they sat in the lamplight, Mariah felt the baby move, a flutter of life for dreams she thought she'd lost. "Do you regret marrying me instead of someone who'd guarantee sons?" she asked. He took her hand, touching her ring. "I regret. Thinking love was weakness. I regret not seeing your strength sooner. But marrying you? Never. Even if we have all girls, they'll run this ranch better than any sons, smart and strong like you." His change was complete. He saw legacy and values, not just blood. A knock came. Cassian reached for his gun. Old habits, but it was Thomas Brennan with good news. "Steele's arrested in Colorado," he said, taking coffee. "Tried his scam? On the wrong guy. Marshall's got him." "Good," Cassian said. "Maybe it'll stop others." "It already has," Brennan said. "Your wife's testimony is famous. Lawyers and judges are talking about checking papers right." Their fight had helped honest settlers. After Brennan left, they settled into their routine, moving like dancers to their own song. As Mariah brushed her hair with Cassian's comb, he read the newspaper. "Says the legislature wants new rules for checking old land papers, partly because of us." Their struggle helped the territory. In bed, Mariah caught her reflection, amazed at 6 months' change. The desperate girl was gone, replaced by a glowing woman. Her smarts weren't hidden but used for her family and town. Her guarded heart had opened to deep love. "What are you thinking?" Cassian asked. "How much changes in half a year? I was desperate. Now I'm Mrs. Cassian Holt, with a home, a loving husband, a baby coming. You're the woman who saved my ranch, changed me, taught me strength is partnership, not control," he said. "I'm the lucky one." She placed his hand on her belly to feel the baby's kicks. The child was lively, feeling their home's warmth. "3 strong boys," she teased. "3 strong kids, raised with love and respect," he said. "Maybe more if we're lucky." "More? I like family life," he admitted, hand circling her belly. Outside, the ranch sang its lullaby. Cows, horses, nightbirds. It was their life's soundtrack, built from grit and love. As sleep came, Mariah thought of her journey, walking for survival, finding love. She'd married for a deal and found a partner who saw her smarts as a gift. The toy horse waited for their child. More toys, challenges, joys would come, but they'd face it all together, teaching their kids strength from character, smarts to share, and love as the foundation. The ranch house, once empty, now buzzed with laughter, humming, and whistling. Sometimes broken people find each other in hard places, and sometimes, if they're brave, they learn love isn't weakness, but the strength they always needed. Coyote Gulch, where dust-choked dreams and survival was tough, Cassian and Mariah Holt proved some things were stronger than fear, tougher than hardship, and worth more than all the land and cows. A family built on love for all the joyful days ahead.